Hey everyone, and welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm Brian, and we're diving into a topic that's really got people talking these days. Vegetarian diets. We've got a whole bunch of research articles and studies, even some global reports to really look into. So if you want to kind of get a handle on all the pros and cons of this whole plant-based eating thing, well, you've come to the right place.
Yeah, that's right. I'm Chelsea. I'm a nutritionist, and I'm here to help kind of, separate fact from all the hype. There's a lot of information out there, so we're going to try to break it down and give you guys those evidence-based insights that you need.
Exactly. And before we jump in, make sure you check out the Detox Health YouTube channel for a bunch more awesome content on all things health and wellness. Hit that subscribe button and share this deep dive with your friends so we can, help more people make good choices, right?
Yeah.
Informed choices about their diet. Okay, enough of that stuff. Chelsea, it feels like more and more people are going veggie these days. What's going on? What's driving this whole thing?
Well, Brian, there are a few things, actually. I think one is just this growing awareness of, how healthy it can be. People are realizing that plant-based diets can be super nutritious and maybe even protect you from certain diseases, those chronic diseases everyone's worried about. But it's not just about our own health, right? There's also this increasing concern about how our food choices impact the environment. And lots of people are choosing vegetarianism to reduce their footprint.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's kind of a mix of wanting to be healthy and wanting to be good to the planet. It seems like even that Eat Lancet Commission, those global experts, they're kind of on board with this movement too, right?
Oh, absolutely. They actually published this landmark report where they were advocating for these sustainable, healthy diets. And the thing is, they're largely plant-based. What's really cool about what they say is they emphasize how human health and planetary health are totally connected.
Yeah.
They're saying if we shift to eating more plants, it could be huge for both people and the planet.
Okay, so we've got some big brains backing up this idea of plant-based eating. But Chelsea, before we get too far, I think it's important to be clear about something for our listeners. When we say vegetarian, it's not like a one-size-fits-all kind of thing, is it?
You're so right, Brian. It's really important to get the nuances of this term vegetarian right. You've got vegans, and they avoid all animal products, right? Then you've got lacto-ovo-vegetarians. They'll eat dairy and eggs. And then there's pesco-vegetarians. They'll eat fish and seafood on top of that. Each of these approaches has different things to think about nutritionally, so we got to be clear on what kind of vegetarian diet we're talking about.
Right, good point. So for everyone listening, keep in mind there are different ways to go vegetarian, and they each have their own quirks. Now, let's get to the nitty-gritty. What does the science actually say about how healthy these plant-based approaches are?
Well, Brian, the research is pretty interesting. Studies show that well-planned vegetarian diets can really have a positive effect on all sorts of health stuff. For example, let's take heart health. There's this really comprehensive study, the Adventist Health Study 2, and they followed over 96,000 people for 7 years. They found that vegetarians had a way lower risk of heart disease compared to those who ate meat.
Wow, that's a big study. What is it about vegetarian diets that make hearts healthier?
There are a few key things going on. Vegetarians tend to eat less saturated fat, which is linked to high cholesterol and heart disease. They also usually eat more fiber, which helps lower cholesterol and blood pressure. And here's something interesting. Replacing saturated fat with polyunsaturated fats, which you find in plant-based foods like nuts and seeds, can be as good for your heart as statin therapy.
Wait, statin therapy? Maybe some people aren't familiar with that. What is that exactly?
Oh, right, of course. Statins are medications that doctors often prescribe to lower cholesterol and reduce the risk of things like heart attacks and strokes. They basically stop the liver from making too much cholesterol.
Okay, so swapping out that bad saturated fat with those healthy fats from plants can be just as effective as taking medication for cholesterol. That's pretty amazing. But I'm sure it's still important to talk to your doctor before changing your diet, right?
Oh, definitely. Always best to get personalized advice from your healthcare provider, especially if you have any health issues already or if you're taking any medications.
Right, makes sense. Okay, so we've got heart health covered. What else does a vegetarian diet do well?
Well, Brian, let's talk about diabetes. Studies have actually shown that vegetarian diets, especially vegan ones, can be really helpful for managing type 2 diabetes. There was this one study published in the journal Nutrition and Diabetes, and they found that a vegan diet was better at lowering HbA1c levels than the usual diabetic diet.
That's interesting. So a vegan diet could actually be more effective at managing blood sugar than what people with diabetes are usually told to do. That's worth looking into.
Exactly. And it's not just about cutting out certain foods. Plant-based diets are full of fiber, which helps regulate blood sugar and makes you more sensitive to insulin. Plus, they're naturally lower in calories and fat, so that can help with weight loss, which is also really important for managing diabetes.
Okay, so we got heart health, diabetes management. This sounded pretty good.
Yeah.
What else? Are there any other benefits we should know about?
Well, there's some interesting new research coming out about how vegetarian diets might help prevent cancer. We need more research to be totally sure, but some studies are showing that vegetarians have a lower risk of some cancers, like colorectal cancer and some hormone-related cancers.
Wow, so maybe lowering the risk of cancer too. That's incredible. What's going on there? Why might that be?
It's probably a bunch of things, actually. Plant-based diets are loaded with antioxidants, which help fight off those harmful free radicals in the body. They also have tons of fiber, which is good for digestion and might help reduce the risk of colon cancer. And then some plant foods have these special compounds, like phytochemicals, that actually have anti-cancer properties.
So it's not just about not eating meat, but actually adding all these great plant foods that have all these benefits. Makes sense. What about the brain? I've heard some talk about vegetarian diets and dementia. Any truth to that?
Yeah, that's something scientists are really looking into right now, Brian. There are a few studies that suggest a vegetarian diet might be linked to a lower risk of cognitive decline and dementia, but we're still figuring out exactly what's going on there.
So it's possible that eating plant-based could be good for your brain in the long run, but we need more research to be sure. Fascinating. So far, it seems like there's a lot to be excited about when it comes to vegetarian diets, but I know there's always two sides to every story, and we're going to take a closer look at the potential downsides after this quick break. Okay, so we've looked at some of the good things about plant-based eating, but like anything, there are some potential downsides we should probably talk about. Chelsea, what should people be thinking about before they go full-on vegetarian?
Well, that's a really good question, Brian. I mean, well-planned vegetarian diets can be really good for you, but there are some things to consider, especially when it comes to nutrition. One big one is the risk of nutrient deficiencies, and that's especially true for those who go vegan.
Right, that makes sense. I mean, if you're cutting out whole food groups, you got to be careful you're still getting everything your body needs. So what are some of the nutrients that tend to be missing in vegetarian diets? And what happens if you don't get enough of them?
Yeah, exactly. If you're not careful, a vegetarian diet can lead to some deficiencies, especially in those nutrients that you mostly find in animal products. And one of the most important ones is vitamin B12.
Oh yeah, B12. I hear about that all the time when people talk about veganism. Why is B12 so important? What happens if you don't get enough?
Well, vitamin B12 is super important for all kinds of things your body does, like making red blood cells, keeping your nerves working properly, and even making DNA. And since it's mainly found in animal products, vegans are at a much higher risk of being deficient. If you don't have enough B12 over time, it can cause this type of anemia called megaloblastic anemia that can make you feel really tired and weak, and it can even cause problems with your nerves. In some cases, it can even cause permanent nerve damage.
Wow, okay, that sounds serious. So if you're thinking about going vegan, you definitely need to take B12 supplements.
Definitely. And it's not just about taking a pill. Vegans really need to make sure they're eating foods that have been fortified with B12, things like some plant-based milks and cereals. And it's always a good idea to get regular blood tests to check those B12 levels.
So be proactive,
Yeah.
right? Make sure you're getting what you need.
Yeah.
What about other deficiencies? Anything else vegetarians and vegans should watch out for?
Yes, iron, zinc, and calcium are also super important, and it's especially crucial for kids, pregnant women, and women who are breastfeeding to get enough of those. The iron you get from plants isn't absorbed as well as the iron from animal sources, so vegetarians need to eat plenty of iron-rich plant foods like lentils, spinach, tofu, and pair them with things that are high in vitamin C to help with that absorption.
That's a great tip. So what about zinc and calcium? What are the best ways for vegetarians to get enough of those?
Well, good sources of zinc include beans, nuts, seeds, and whole grains. For calcium, leafy green vegetables, fortified plant milks, and tofu are all good options. And don't forget about vitamin D. It's essential for absorbing calcium, so make sure you're getting enough sunshine or taking a vitamin D supplement.
This is really helpful information, Chelsea. And a lot of people might think that just because you're eating vegetarian, you're automatically eating healthy. But it sounds like it's not quite that simple. What are some of the, traps people can fall into with a poorly planned vegetarian diet?
You're so right, Brian. Just because something's vegetarian doesn't mean it's healthy. If you're eating a vegetarian diet that's mostly processed foods, refined grains, sugary drinks, and unhealthy fats, that can actually be really bad for you.
That's a good point. So it's not just about what you're not eating, but what you are eating. What does a healthy vegetarian diet actually look like?
Well, a truly healthy vegetarian diet is all about eating whole, minimally processed foods that are packed with nutrients. Lots of fresh fruits and vegetables, legumes, whole grains, nuts, and seeds. And don't forget those healthy fats from things like avocados, olive oil, and nuts.
That sounds delicious.
hmm
Okay, but what about protein? Isn't meat the best source of protein? How can vegetarians get enough?
That's a common misconception, Brian. You absolutely can get enough protein on a vegetarian diet. You just have to plan a bit more. The key is to include a variety of plant-based protein sources throughout the day. Things like beans and lentils are great for both protein and fiber. And then you have soy-based products like tofu, tempeh, and edamame, which are also packed with protein. Oh, and don't forget about nuts and seeds. They have protein, healthy fats, and all sorts of other nutrients.
So mix it up.
Mhm.
Right. Get your protein from lots of different sources. Do you have to combine different plant proteins in a specific way to make sure you get all the essential amino acids?
That idea that you need to combine specific plant proteins at every meal to make complete proteins is kind of old school. As long as you're eating a variety of protein sources throughout the day, your body will be able to put together all the essential amino acids it needs.
Okay, so it's not about being super strict, but just making sure you have a good mix of those protein-rich plant foods in your diet overall. Are there any other, common myths about vegetarian diets that we should bust?
Yeah, one I hear a lot is that vegetarian diets are always low in iron. While it's true that the iron from plants isn't as easily absorbed as the heme iron you get from animals, there are still plenty of plant foods that are rich in iron. And as we talked about earlier, eating those iron-rich foods with some vitamin C can really help your body absorb that iron better.
Right, good reminder. So a little squeeze of lemon on your spinach salad can go a long way. What about calcium? Is it true that vegetarians are more likely to be low on calcium?
It's something to pay attention to, for sure, but it's not impossible to get enough calcium on a vegetarian diet. There are lots of plant-based sources of calcium, like leafy greens, like kale and collard greens, fortified plant milks, and tofu. And remember that vitamin D is really important for absorbing calcium, so make sure you're getting some sunshine or taking a vitamin D supplement.
Okay, so it's all about knowing the potential challenges and taking steps to deal with them. What about the idea that vegetarian diets are boring and restrictive?
Oh, that's so not true, Brian. Vegetarian food can be incredibly diverse and flavorful. There's this whole world of plant-based ingredients to explore, from amazing fruits and vegetables to hearty legumes and grains and all sorts of delicious spices and herbs. And with plant-based eating becoming more and more popular, there are so many creative and tasty vegetarian recipes and products out there now.
You've definitely got me thinking about trying some new things in the kitchen, Chelsea. I'm going to have to make a trip to the farmer's market soon. So we've talked about a lot here. The potential benefits, the things to watch out for, and how important it is to have a well-planned approach. What are some of the main takeaways you'd like our listeners to remember?
I think the most important thing to remember is that a well-planned vegetarian diet can be a really delicious, nutritious, and sustainable way to live, and it can be really good for both your own health and the health of the planet. It's not about depriving yourself or following strict rules. It's about enjoying a variety of plant-based foods and making choices that work for you and your values.
Well said, Chelsea. And if anyone out there is thinking about making a big change to their diet, it's always a good idea to talk to a registered dietitian or a healthcare professional just to make sure you're meeting your needs and making choices that are good for your overall health.
Exactly. Having that personalized guidance can make a huge difference when you're switching to a vegetarian lifestyle and making it stick. Speaking of guidance, before we move on, don't forget to check out the Detox Health YouTube channel. They've got tons of great evidence-based information on all things nutrition, health, and wellness. There are tons of videos, articles, and recipes there to help you on your journey to optimal health.
Yeah, the Detox Health channel is a great resource. They've got so much great content to keep you informed and inspired. Now, we've talked a lot about the nutrition side of vegetarianism, but there's another side to this that I'd like to get into. What about the environmental impact of our food choices?
That's a great point, Brian. The impact of food production on the environment is a huge concern, and the choices we make about what we eat play a big part.
So when we think about how our food choices affect the planet, where do vegetarian diets fit in?
Well, all the research shows that animal agriculture is a really big contributor to those greenhouse gas emissions. And then there's deforestation and water pollution. So if we shift to eating more plant-based, it can make a real difference for the environment.
Yeah, I've heard that too. But meat production is such a big part of how we get our food. Can we really change things just by changing what we eat?
Absolutely, Brian. Every single choice we make has an impact. It's like if each of us eats a little less meat, even just a little bit, all that adds up, right? And it can actually change the way the whole food system works. It'll lower the demand for animal products, and then that will help reduce how much animal agriculture is hurting the environment.
I like that way of looking at it. It's not about being perfect or changing everything overnight. It's about making choices that feel right for us and that help make things better for the future. So eating less meat, maybe having some plant-based meals a few times a week, that can actually make a real difference. Are there any resources or tools you recommend for people who want to figure out their own dietary footprint or maybe just find some more sustainable food options?
Oh, yeah. There are tons of great resources out there. One that I always suggest is the Environmental Working Group's Meat Eater's Guide to Climate Change and Health. It's really helpful, gives you really good overview of how different types of meat affect the environment, and it has some good tips for cutting back on meat. And then there are also all those carbon footprint calculators online. You can use them to estimate the impact of your diet and see how you can make it more sustainable.
Fantastic. I'm definitely going to check those out. Well, we've covered a lot today, from the potential health benefits of vegetarian diets to the nutritional things to watch out for, to how our food choices affect the environment. This has been a really eye-opening deep dive. What are some of the big takeaways you want our listeners to remember?
I think the most important thing to remember is that a well-planned vegetarian diet can be a really enjoyable, nutritious, and sustainable way to live. It's good for you, and it's good for the planet. And it's not about giving things up or following strict rules. It's about enjoying a variety of those plant-based foods and making smart choices that work for you and your own values.
Well said, Chelsea. And again, if you're thinking about making a big change to your diet, it's always a good idea to chat with a registered dietitian or a healthcare professional. Make sure you're getting what you need and making choices that are going to keep you healthy and well.
Exactly. Having that personalized guidance can make a huge difference when you're making changes to your diet and trying to stick with them.
I'm feeling pretty inspired to add more plant-based meals to my own diet, Chelsea. You've got me craving a big, colorful salad right now.
That sounds great, Brian. Remember, eating more plants is good for you and good for the planet. It's a win-win.
And on that note, a quick reminder to everyone to subscribe to the Detox Health YouTube channel. They've got so much great content on health and wellness, tons of evidence-based information, tips, and recipes to help you on your journey to better health.
Yeah, it's a great resource for anyone who wants to take charge of their health and well-being and really learn about how their diet and lifestyle choices can make a difference.
Chelsea, thanks so much for joining us on the deep dive today and sharing your expertise on vegetarian diets. It's been awesome having you here.
The pleasure was all mine, Brian. I always love diving into the fascinating world of nutrition and exploring how powerful food can be for transforming our health and the health of our planet.
And to all our amazing listeners, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of vegetarian diets. We hope you learned some cool stuff and are feeling inspired to make some good choices about your own eating habits.
Yeah, remember, knowledge is power. So keep learning, keep exploring, and stay curious.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Until next time, happy exploring, everyone. And don't forget to subscribe to Detox Health on YouTube for more deep dives into the topics that matter most to you.